A lot of bodybuilders and athletes, they're very interested in taking supplements that'll give them greater energy, allow them to train harder, and possibly have more focus during their workouts. These supplements fall under the general heading of pre-workout supplements. And when they first came out, most of the ingredients were pretty benign. The early pre-workout supplements contained a main ingredient was caffeine, and that still holds true today. In fact, the recent study showed they compared. Well, anyway, to make a long story short, this study found that the primary energy-producing ingredient in most pre-workout supplements was actually caffeine. So a lot of people are spending $50 to $60 and up for basically a low-level caffeine powder, where they throw in a lot of other herbs and esoteric substances that look good on the label but really don't contribute much to energy at all. However, there's another category of pre-workout supplements that this started a trend. This was a trend that started I should add, the early pre-workout supplements also emphasized a substance called ephedrine. Ephedrine was marketed mainly as a fat burner. And again, I want to emphasize that fat burner term is a misnomer, because there's no supplement known that actually directly burns fat. The proper term for what they call fat burner supplements is fat mobilizers. In other words, some of these supplements that are labeled fat burners, what they do is they help you mobilize fat. They stimulate, for example, the release of what they call catecholamines, which is epinephrine and norepinephrine. These hormone substances interact with an enzyme called hormone-sensitive lipase on fat cells, causing the fat cells to break down the triglyceride content of fat cells into free fatty acids and glycerol, which then enter the blood. Now, what happens next is up to you. If you do exercise that involves a large intake of oxygen, you will actually be burning fat. You'll be burning those fatty acids. However, if you just take a fat burner and sit down and watch TV or something, what's going to happen is, the supplement will cause the fat cells to release fat, but if you don't do anything to oxidize it, it'll circulate in the blood and go right back into the fat cells. That's a process called re-esterification. A little hard to pronounce, but basically means restorage of fat that was circulating and wasn't oxidized. Now, getting back to these pre-workout supplements, as I said, a lot of the earlier ones did contain ephedrine. Ephedrine, it was a genuine fat mobilizer and an indirect fat oxidizer, because ephedrine, similarly to caffeine, stimulated catecholamine release, which did stimulate the release of stored fat, but it also had two secondary effects. One of them was that it increased the conversion of relatively inactive thyroid hormone called T4 into the 5 times more active T3 form. And when you have the T3 form, actually does increase your metabolic rate, which might mean a little bit greater ability to burn fat. The third possible way that ephedrine helped you lose body fat. Betty fat is, by the way, Betty fat is fat specific to a woman named Betty. It has nothing to do with this. But anyway, another way that it helped you to possibly lose body fat would be because it also tended to decrease appetite. Now, decreasing appetite's a big thing. Anything that's going to decrease your appetite will probably help you lose body fat. These new drugs, like like Ozempic, and similar Mounjaro, they all work. Their main reason that they cause their drugs actually used to treat people with type 2 diabetes, because they're what they call glucagon-like peptide 1 agonists. GLP-1 is a gut peptide that basically makes insulin work better, very effective at doing so, but it has a secondary effect of sending signals to the brain which lower your appetite and also produce a feeling of fullness. So when you take a drug like Ozempic, you have the net effect is that you're not going to, your hunger is lessened and you'll consume fewer calories, and that's how you lose weight on Ozempic, right? But now ephedrine also tended to decrease appetite. So if you get those three things, mobilization of fat from fat cells, increase of inactive to active thyroid hormone, and decrease of hunger, ephedrine was actually could actually qualify as a true fat burner. But what happened was ephedrine turned out to be its worst enemy because it worked so well that drug companies complained to the Food Drug Administration, and they lobbied to get ephedrine off the market, and that's what happened. I think it was 2004. Ephedrine was pulled off the market because of so-called adverse effects, thousands of adverse effects. Almost all of them were bogus. The only way ephedrine could cause a problem would be if you overdosed on it, because it was let's say it's one molecule away. Ephedrine was one molecule away from being an amphetamine. And in fact, there was a way of converting, if you knew chemistry, there was a way of adding a simple chemical to ephedrine, which would turn it into full-blown methamphetamine. Because of that, when ephedrine was still legal, the companies selling it started adding this inactive cough suppressant, which really had no effect on anything. But what it did is it adulterated the ephedrine so that it couldn't be turned into methamphetamine. In other words, this stuff was added to methamphetamine purely so that the ephedrine wouldn't be converted by chemists into methamphetamine. It's kind of a funny story. Not too many people know that. But anyway, ephedrine was removed, and ephedrine and caffeine formed the basis of the earliest pre-workout formulas. In the more recent ones, they started, people have this, it's like that line from Top Gun, I have the need for speed. A lot of people want to have this really heavy, speedy feeling. They think that it allows them to work out harder and with much less fatigue. And it's true. Amphetamine does cause, in the brain, it has a decreased fatigue feeling. Of course, it also rots the brain and causes brain damage, but that's another story. But in an effort to provide more potent pre-workout supplements, some of these companies hired people who were familiar with chemistry, and they dug out a lot of ancient amphetamines that were used as far back as the 1940s, but were discarded because a lot of them were like, for example, nasal decongestants. There's one called phenylepinephrine, I believe it's called. It was used, basically, it constricts the blood vessels in the nose, and by doing that, it's a nasal decongestant, see? But it also has a slight speed effect, and there was other drugs similar to that created in the 1940s, and most of them would never even hit the market because animal studies showed that they were way too dangerous. They could be toxic really easily, and it could happen at fairly low dosages. However, these hired gun chemists dug out these discarded amphetamines, and the supplement companies started putting them in pre-workout formulas. One of the first was called DMAA. DMAA was compared to caffeine. Taking DMA was supposedly equal to drinking about 4 or 5 cups of coffee as far as the stimulant effect was concerned. Unfortunately, people have different sensitivities to these amphetamines. Even a weak amphetamine like DMMA, it caused strokes, especially a couple of military men took it. They got strokes. These were young guys, and this caused the FDA to get the DMA off the market. Now, since then, not to it's like with testosterone boosters. When they first produced testosterone boosters, they were actually they were how do I put it? They were precursors for actual testosterone, like androstenedione, and then they went into same thing happened. They hired these chemists. They dug out the old steroids that were produced in the 50s but were never marketed because of extreme liver toxicity, and they started selling them as pro-hormones. A couple of guys, sure enough, some of them got liver failure, some of them got very sick, and again, the FDA stepped in, Congress passed the law banning any supplement that could directly boost testosterone, and that because what these testosterone boosters were, they were actual anabolic steroids. They were not natural substances. They were anabolic steroids that the government, when you had a couple of side effects from people, including liver failure, the government stepped in and they got Congress to pass this bill banning them. So that's another story. But the point is that when they get rid of one, getting back to the pre-workout, when they get rid of one stimulant, they just go back and dig out other stimulants. And they put them in these pre-workout. They give them crazy names like crazed and insane. I'm making these names, nutty names to show how potent they are. And, they all could be dangerous. Now, quite frankly, if you used the suggested dosages, let's say just out of the air, let's say the supplement says to use 1 scoop. If you use 1 scoop of these supplements that contain these old amphetamines, you probably will it'll feel like I say, it'll feel like about 4 cups of coffee, and it'll speed up your heart a bit, but probably nothing will happen unless you have a pre-existing cardiovascular problem that you're not aware of. Let's say you're on the verge of having a heart attack or something. These things could push you right over the edge and give you a heart attack, but assuming that you're just a healthy person, they're just going to give you a speed effect. The problem comes in when you decide that, well, if 1 scoop really gives me all this drive and energy, I'm going to go to 2, 3, and 4 scoops. Now you're taking probably a full-fledged amphetamine dose with all the attendant problems associated with that, including cardiovascular collapse, stroke. All these things could happen. So, but here's the interesting part. This is the thing I wanted to get into in this particular video. I came across a research letter that was published in the Journal of the American Medical Association. The author of the main author of this study, letter, let's call it letter, was a guy named Peter Cohn. He's out of Harvard University, and this guy Cohn, for the last 10 years or so, has made it his goal to purchase supplements and analyze them, especially supplements that could possibly be dangerous to health. He's an MD, and he's analyzed them to see what's really in them. So he did this with a couple of what we call botanical ingredients. Botanical refers to plant ingredients. See, this is how the supplement companies who sell these pre-workouts, they get away with it by making them look like they're natural supplements, because some of these substances, these natural amphetamines, they're found in plants. Some of them are actually exist in plants. So, if it's a natural supplement, it can bypass the drug laws. In other words, there was a 1992 law, this Food Supplement Act, something like that, that basically allowed, if a supplement is derived from a natural substance, you don't have to go through the usual process of drug approval. With the FDA, you could put it right into a supplement and market it. Now, the only time that you're going to get in trouble is if the supplement gets a lot of people sick or kills them. Then you get in trouble. And some of these supplements are actually capable of doing that. But what I want to do, the point of this letter that this guy Cohn sent into the JAMA journal, he analyzed a couple of these stimulants that are found in supplements. And again, most of them are all basically descendants of ephedrine. They were marketed to replace the effects of ephedrine, which, like I say, was 1 molecule away from being an amphetamine. But he analyzed a couple of these things. I'm going to read you. It's a short letter. I'm going to read it and comment as I read it. Introduction. Since the U.S. Food and Drug Administration banned ephedra from dietary supplements in 2004, supplement manufacturers have promoted a complex variety of alternative botanical compounds for sports enhancement. Extracts of Rauwolfia vomitoria containing yohimbe, the caffeine, that's one of them, the caffeine-like compound methylberine, the partial beta-2 agonist halostacnine, the plant steroid Turkesterone. That's a big one, because a lot of people are curious about Turkesterone. Turkesterone is marketed as being an effective promoter of testosterone. In other words, it's a plant-based substance that's supposed to significantly boost testosterone. I'm just going to say in one sentence, it does not. But anyway, it's, a lot of people, there's a lot of hype around Turkesterone. People make these YouTube videos extolling the benefits of Turkesterone. It's all bullshit. And then there was another one they looked at was a norepinephrine-like chemical called octapamine. Octapamine has shown up in quite a few of these pre-workout supplements, and it's structurally similar to norepinephrine, and another substance called synephrine. Synephrine is again structurally similar to epinephrine and norepinephrine, so it would have a stimulant effect, possibly a fat mobilization effect. Synephrine was the first supplement they tried to replace ephedrine with. Anyway, I'm continuing on. He says it's all of these are found in plants and are promoted in dietary supplements for their stimulant or anabolic effects. The FDA does not pre-approve these ingredients or any supplement ingredient for either efficacy or safety before their introduction, but FDA inspections have found that supplement manufacturers often fail to comply with basic manufacturing standards, such as establishing the identity, purity, or composition of the final product. Given the product's potentially complex physiologic effects and concerns regarding manufacturing quality, we determined the accuracy of dietary supplement labels declaring R. vomitoria, methylliberine, halostacine, octamine, and turkesterone. So basically, they purchased these products online, and products were excluded if the actual label did not list one of the 5 ingredients. Powder from the dietary supplement was reconstituted methanol, analyzed for the presence and quantity of the 5 ingredients, and then they use a process called liquid chromatography to check to see whether how much of these substances these supplements actually contain. The results showed of 63 products purchased, 6 did not list one of the 5 ingredients on the label. Therefore, 57 products were analyzed, 13 listed R. vomitoria, 21 listed methylliberine, 8 listed turkesterone, 7 listed halostacine, 8 listed octamine. 23 of 57 products, or 40%, did not contain a detectable amount of the labeled ingredient. Of the products that contained detectable amounts, the actual quantity ranged from 0.02% to 334% of the labeled quantity. 6 of 57 products, or 11%, contained a quantity of the ingredient within 10% of the labeled quantity. 7 of 57 products, or 12%, were found to contain at least one FDA prohibited ingredient. So there you go. Anyway, so 89% of the dietary supplement labels did not accurately declare the ingredients found in the products. 12% contain FDA prohibited ingredients. So so let's let me talk a little bit about this stuff. For example, Ephedrine. Ephedrine is one of the things that they looked at. It's a central nervous system stimulant, and what it does, it increases the uptake of dopamine and noradrenaline. It's used as a pre-workout stimulant and a fat burner, and the effects of it are enhanced euphoria, alertness, and increased pain threshold. It's considered possibly unsafe when taken by mouth, and it has effects similar to dimethylamine or DMAA, which has been known to cause heart attacks and strokes. Then there's the other stuff called oxyliphrine. 2 runners were tested positive for that stuff. They considered amphetamines. Runners named Tyson Gay and Asafa Powell, 2 of the fastest sprinters in the world. They underwent drug tests. They were found positive for this stuff, and of course, they said they didn't realize it. They probably innocently took it in a supplement, not realizing that it would show up as an amphetamine, which of course is banned in athletic competition. Oxyliphrine is a stimulant of the amphetamine class that was developed to treat low blood pressure. In other words, amphetamine raises your blood pressure. This stuff was developed to raise low blood pressure in people who didn't respond to conventional treatment. Oxyliphrine is a prescription name for methylsynephrine. hydroxyphrine and oxyphrine. It's not widely used. It's not a licensed drug in the U.S. and it's again very similar to synephrine. It increases epinephrine production. It supposedly boosts endurance, focus, alertness, and heart rate, and increases oxygenation of the blood. The side effects could be tachycardia, very high heart rate, irregular heartbeat, and possibly a hemorrhagic stroke. It can also cause high blood pressure if taken by people with normal blood pressure. So that's that one. And then they have this stuff called the stuff that they looked at called Deterenol. That's the one that was never approved for use in the United States, and it's been linked to reports of adverse events including nausea, vomiting, sweating, agitation, heart palpitations, chest pain, and cardiac arrest. So there you go. What can I say? Here's the point, though. What's the point? Why did I even talk about this stuff? Because a lot of your pre-workout supplements today, especially the ones that cost $60 or more, contain these ingredients. Now, for some reason, the letter didn't. They mentioned Yohimbe, which is the stuff. What do they call it? Let me see. They called it R. vomitoria. That basically is a source of Yohimbe. Yohimbe is not a stimulant drug, but it's used as a fat burner. It's, again, not a fat burner. The way Yohimbe works is it's a alpha-2 adrenic receptor blocker. The alpha-2 adrenic receptors, unlike the beta receptors, tend to prevent the release of fat from fat cells. So if you take a substance like Yohimbe, it'll interfere with the action of the alpha-2 adrenic receptors and allow the fat cells, particularly the lower body. Fat cells in the lower body tend to be abundant in alpha-2 adrenic receptors. This is the reason why women have so much trouble losing lower body fat on their upper thighs, on their hips, and on their glutes or buttocks. It's because they have an abundance of alpha-2 adrenic receptors which hold on to the fat. They just hold on to them. It makes it very hard for them to release the fat, even if they exercise and diet. But if they do exercise and diet, eventually the fat will be lost. But it's very, very stubborn. So the idea is if you take Yohimbe, it'll allow you to tap into that fat. Yohimbe, here's the problem. I don't know why they didn't mention it in this research letter, but another study that I came across showed that the problem with Yohimbe is, again, the same situation. I think the study I looked at, they looked at 25 commercial Yohimbe supplements that are sold on the internet, Amazon, whatever. And of the 25, 22 contain either no Yohimbe or contain like a fraction of what was listed on the label. So people who took these supplements would not get any effect whatsoever. No fat loss, nothing. Yohimbe itself can cause side effects. If the real Yohimbe, if you took the real stuff and you took too much, it makes you very prone to what they call panic attacks, your heart racing, tachycardia. Yohimbe is not a benign substance. So that's about it here. So what am I saying? What's the point? The point is, I personally think that if you want to consider pre-workout supplements, be careful about what you buy. Look at the label. If the label has these weird ingredients, like some of the things I mentioned, all these things here, be very careful, because they could, and if you do decide to use them, and usually they're in a powder form, do not, I'm putting that in capital letters, do not exceed the suggested dose. Don't say if 1 scoop is good, 3 or 4 will give me more energy. It won't give you more energy, but it's much more likely to give you a heart problem or even possibly a stroke. So be careful. As far as Turkesterone, I'm sorry. The research I've seen on that, I've done previous videos on it. I think it's absolute garbage. I know that there's a lot of people that recommend it, but you'll find, if you do a little detective work, you'll find that almost all the ones that are rah about how great Turkesterone are, they have a dog in the fight. They're selling it, or if they're not selling it, they're connected to a company that's selling it, and they're getting kickbacks. They're being paid. They're shills to get you unwary consumers to buy this crap and waste your money. You're not going to get any testosterone boost from Turkesterone. Now, I know somebody's going to leave a comment under this video, and they're going to say, hey, you're full of crap, pal. I took Turkesterone, and I started to make these tremendous muscle gains, and I could feel it. I know it was boosting my testosterone. My friend, that's what they call the placebo effect. It's the placebo effect. If you really believe with all your heart and soul that something's going to produce results, very often it will, and it will not only produce results, it'll produce the exact results you think that it's supposed to do. But it's not the stuff you're taking. It's little things you're doing that you're not conscious of. You might be training harder. You might be sleeping better. You might be eating better. These are the things that are raising your testosterone, not Turkesterone. The only thing that's doing is enriching the bank accounts of a couple of frauds. So I'm going to leave it at that. If you want more information, and I'm talking honest information on nutrition, exercise science, anti-aging research you can use today, supplement science, which supplements work, which ones don't. Just like this Dr. Cohn, I like to expose phony supplements. I have no dog in the game myself. I'm not involved with any supplement company. I don't advertise for them. I'm not going to mention them in my publication because that's just the way it is. If I'm not sure of something, I won't recommend it. And unfortunately, when it comes to supplements, it's the wild, wild west. You never know what you're really getting. And believe me, I'm a supplement advocate. I take a ton of supplements myself, but I get them from reputable companies, no fly-by-night crap. And I do think they definitely help under certain circumstances, especially, for example, if you're not getting the nutrients from your food. You better get a supplement to supplement it, or else you're not going to achieve maximum health and protection. That's what supplements are good for, to supplement what you're not getting in your diet. But unfortunately, as I say, there's a lot of bad companies. They're out to make a lot of money, and they don't give a crap. They'll sell you garbage. So you got to be careful of that. But I will expose that stuff in my Applied Metabolics publication. I also cover women's health and fitness, ergogenic aids, hormonal therapy. I cover more topics in Applied Metabolics than any other digital publication. And I can tell you this, these other digital publications, I've looked at a lot of them. I'm not saying their information isn't good. They have a lot of good information. The problem I see with the other digital publications is twofold. The first one is that they're not written by professional writers. The writing is often very technical, hard to understand, and frankly, quite boring. It's like wading through mud. It's like reading a medical journal. They don't make it very interesting. They use a lot of technical terms. My Applied Metabolics is written in magazine style, where anybody with a sixth grade education will readily understand everything I write. And if I have to use technical terms, I will tell you what it means immediately, so you don't have to reach for a medical dictionary. The other thing is that I forgot what the other problem is. Oh, anyway, well, the point is they don't cover as many topics. Oh, that's what I remember now. The other problem with the other digital publications is that very often the subject matter, this is what I really find fascinating, is stuff that nobody's really interested in. I mean, they cover studies that have no practical value at all. I mean, why are they even writing this stuff? It's not usable. When I write Applied Metabolics, I write about topics that you can use today, that are very relevant and of practical use. That's another major difference between Applied Metabolics, and also there's just much more material. Each issue of Applied Metabolics is anywhere from 30 to 45 pages, no ads. These other publications range from 5 pages to 15 pages, nothing. They don't even come close to having the depth of Applied Metabolics. So subscribe today. It's www.appliedmetabolics.com. When you subscribe, shoot me an email, and I'll send you an invitation to join my private Applied Metabolics Facebook page, where each day I post new, right off the press, brand new information on nutrition, exercise science, and general health. I also have an email portal on my Applied Metabolics webpage, which is exclusive for current subscribers of Applied Metabolics, where you could send me short questions about anything you read in Applied Metabolics or anything that comes to mind related to nutrition, exercise. And as a bonus of your subscription and an appreciation of your support of my work, I will personally answer your questions. But I only do this to I do this for current subscribers. I will not answer unsolicited questions. You're welcome to leave comments under the videos. Hopefully they'll be nice comments. If they're not, I'm just going to ignore them anyway, so feel free to write whatever you want. It doesn't bother me. Like, for example, you have suggestions for future videos, topics you think a lot of people might be interested. I'm open to that. I'll be happy to do a video about that. Also, if you think I have... look, I admit it. My videos are no frills. There's no frills video. I got this black background behind me. There's nothing here. It's just me. I'm a talking head. I'm looking in the camera. But I'm giving you solid 100% information that you can count on. I don't have the fancy graphics or the music or the dancing girls like some of these other YouTube videos. But really, if you listen carefully to a lot of these other YouTube videos, they're rich on looks, but very short on useful content. The content is not very good if you really listen carefully. It's often inaccurate and just plain wrong. So, what I'm trying to say is, if you think that my videos here on my channel are of use, please tell others about it. The videos are completely free, and I post a new video every Tuesday. If you subscribe, I believe you receive an email informing you of a posting of a new video each week. So that's about it. If you want to have the best friend you'll ever have, go to your local shelter, adopt a dog. Within a very short time, I expect I'm going to have another dog. It'll probably be a senior dog. No dog will ever replace Bruno. Those of you who subscribe to my channel, probably Bruno's been in a few of my videos. He was my best friend for 20 years. He was 23 years old when he passed away on last March. He was literally my best friend. He was a perfect dog for me. He's irreplaceable, but I still, I like dogs, and so I'm going to get another dog. It's going to be a rescue dog, of course. Or a shelter dog. I do not get dogs from breeders, and I advise you not to get one either. There's wonderful, just beautiful dogs in shelters, kill shelters all over the country that are just waiting to be adopted, and believe me, they'll appreciate it. They'll love you with all your heart, and the most loyal companions you could ever find. So do yourself a favor. Like I say, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. Humans will turn on you. I've seen marriages where people act like they'll die for each other, and 4 years later they're sticking knives in each other's throat. Relatives will turn their back on you. Humans, I'm not saying everybody's like this, but humans are not you can't count them on 100%. But dogs, 100%. They'll never turn on you. They're the most loyal creatures. That's what I love about them. Take care. Thanks for listening.